Oh, the session is being recorded. Okay, there we go. Good morning. Welcome to OSU PDC Pro Office Hour. This is Susan Group. This is the Office Hour for Oregon State University PDC Pro Summer 2025. This is call number 4, and the next lesson due is lesson 4, Microclimates and Current Zones, due next Monday, August 18th at 9 a.m. Pacific. And I can see Karen's at the door here, so I'm going to let her in. Waiting room here. Hello, Karen. Unmute you.
Okay, it's just me again.
It's just you. Yeah, it was you and Vincent last. Yeah.
Yeah, I say, where's Vincent?
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Here he is.
There he is.
Speak of the devil. Vincent, we were saying last week it was you and Karen, and we're like, well, where's Vincent? And then the waiting room chime went off. So here you are.
Yeah, sorry, I was on a call for work.
Oh, that's fine. That's all right. I'm on a call for work too. Okay. Did you guys have any questions? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What was that?
I said I'm on a call of waiting work.
Oh, perfect. This is the most important work you can do. We'll put it that way.
Exactly.
I mean, I suppose I'm supposed to say aside from raising children and stuff, but some days this is more pleasant. I'll delete these recordings by the time she's 12 and actively on YouTube or something.
There you go.
Yeah. So going in, did you guys have any questions from lesson 3? Or for lesson 4, I suppose.
For lesson. Oh, go ahead, Erin. I'm sorry.
No, I had a question, and I can't remember what it was. Oh, it kind of been that serious.
Nope. Hopefully it'll come back.
If I remember it, I'll put it on the chat.
Sure. Okay. Vincent, did you have something?
I think for assignment 3, I was good. Really, it was more in some of the microclimates and zones. I kind of felt like, I guess because I'm looking at 5 acres of space, it feels very overwhelming. And so when I try and zoom in into a particular area, it kind of feels like I may be getting too granular. And so I'm wondering, like, how do I find the balance between too big and too small, I guess, when I'm looking at a site like this?
Inset maps can be your friend. So you can do an inset of, an area that you want to focus on. Usually that's something around the house. I'm just going to open up your template if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Discussions. That's not mine, but it's a very charming little.
Oh, sorry, it's me. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit technically challenged, and I was trying to switch it off.
Oh, that's okay. Okay. Let's go. Have you started working on that, Vincent? Okay, I don't see your maps there.
I have not put them into my presentation yet. I have them in my drawing application. I'm working on everything in for the color coding of the microclimates and everything. So I was just finding, like, I could put this one in, I guess.
I can do a screen share if that's fine, if you don't mind.
That's okay. I can quickly drop this in. This is going to go into slide 46. It may not be formatted to fit, but this is the general.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
look of what I'm doing, and I need to fix the opacity. I have it very dark, so I can kind of barely see the stuff because I'm super
Yeah.
zoomed in.
No,
But I'll fix
no,
that
fair enough.
before the final. But
That's
what I'm
fine.
finding is like for example, the center of the page there, just below the orange, that red area there, there's like some
This?
uh yes, that area.
This area.
There's
Okay.
it's kind of like a valley in the lay of the land where a lot of like water and things would flow through. And so
Okay.
it kind of creates almost like a second or third or fourth, fifth, sixth microclimate in that
Hmm.
particular space where in the off season, in the rainy seasons, like we'll have things that actually grow up inside of there without too much trouble, where the
Yeah.
rest of the areas, both above and below, are different because the water's kind of all running into that general space. Does that kind of make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. 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 And that's not uncommon too, is to kind of have your zone, I mean, your zone boundaries or your microclimate boundaries change throughout the year to some extent. So what you're describing is a riparian zone, correct? So it's like an
Uh,
ephemeral.
yeah. Wha-
Yeah. Okay.
And what's tricky with this part too is that this is also irrigated, so like it has like uh, a difference in the off season because the rain, and then in the summer season it's also different because it's heavily irrigated as well with the seasonal irrigation water we get. And then
Hmm.
right below that is kind of a steeper drop off. On the other side of that, there's almost like a little mini ridge kind of thing. So it's a
Okay.
weird layout.
Right. 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 Okay. Um, Now, yeah. So you could do an inset before, like, you could do an inset map for that just to describe the riparian zone. I wouldn't to worry too much about the seasonality because if you've got even a few months of the year where you've got water running through, that's automatically going to change the microclimate. And you can add more microclimates here. I did make a note in the agenda, which I'll go through. Um, you're welcome to change the colors, like that. Those basically the two oranges often end up adjacent, and they're almost impossible to discern from one another. Um, Personally, for zones, I like to really like start at one end of the rainbow and go to the other. So like hot and dry is something like red or orange, greens and blues for the more shaded or like riparian zones. So you are welcome to adjust those colors if you want to, and you can also add another block or two if you feel like you want to get more detailed into your microclimates. If you want to just get more detailed on a sub area, I would just do another slide and do a subset map of your entire area.
Got it. Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
I was kind of struggling to find that balance too, because I
sure.
know for each of the microclimates, like I have to do, species selections for plants and getting all the information and trying to fill in the template and do all the stuff. And I feel like I could keep going almost forever for the rest of my life on the property, just finding different new things.
Oh, sure.
Uh, so
Yeah.
is there a common practice or balancing act that you try to do when you're setting up microclimates and zones and stuff, or like
Well,
just a best practice
yeah.
setting?
I mean, it's always going to depend on what the client goals are, right? Like if you're looking to start, an organic vegetable operation or like a CSA sort of thing, I'd be focusing on areas that have microclimates that are at least at the outset or like first glance accessible to that, and I'd be putting really minimal design, if any design effort into like if there's kind of a rangeland area or like a hinterland. I wouldn't be focusing on like what the plants are for that. I'd be focusing on what the client goals are um, in the areas that are like really like zone 1 to 3. And then once you've got that nailed down, you can start looking at like, okay, if you want to do some livestock grazing or some sort of like larger scale habitat management, that could go into your zone 4, even your zone 3 and 4 if you've got like an orchard area. And then zone 5 is basically quote unquote wilderness. So it's like your area that you really either don't do a lot of management in, or it's a really light touch management, which may also be grazing. There's different options there. But that's where I'd be putting the focus is on the areas that are going to like have the pack of the biggest punch in terms of reaching your goals for the property, because it's about 5 acres, right?
Yeah, it's about 5 acres.
Okay.
So for example, if I wanted to do something like that, if you go directly under the red zone I just described, there's a yellow block to the right and a yellow block to the left. Like those are the two zones that I'm looking at doing the most work project wise in. The one to the right is the garden area. The one to the left is kind of where I want to start setting up potentially like maybe small swales or something, hugel mounds or something going down the slope. Would it be appropriate then to kind of leave this as is and then zoom in on those spaces to try and do that type of mapping? Is that
yeah, I would even, just drop a rectangle kind of around this area. I can't draw because it's on your map, but I don't know. I should have annotation tools actually. I'm going to do some more exploring off time. But yeah, you could drop a rectangle that basically takes that slice and zooms in on it to show, or, something like that, or, lines across there. Just show what it is you've zoomed out to. Yeah, and focus there.
Okay.
So as you move forward through the course, you can still use that as a focus design area, but like don't forget all the rest of the 5 acres. Like you're still going to want to keep that in mind for design considerations, because it could have impacts in terms of your hydrology, depending how your slopes are running. Let me go back to you got a pretty good topo map, didn't you?
Yeah, I have a few of them. I've been kind of looking ahead at some of the lessons too, but the slope generally runs kind of along that path. And then
so you basically water's going down, like this is ridge line.
Yeah, so that's the bottom. The ridge line is actually up towards the structure. So if you look at the very top, just to the top, the very top of the picture there, that's the highest point on the property, and then everything else just runs pretty much straight down the hill.
Okay, can you, to make that clear, can you drop some elevation indicators on here? Like it's nice to have them outside of the map, but even just like a little line that at like, what's your high point? Your high point elevation is 1570 is your highest.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, wherever like say the 1500 line is, and then the 1000 and the 500, if you can find where those contours are.
Yeah.
Or even
realize now I did that on the other 3 versions of that one, and I didn't do it on the correction that I posted. So I'll fix that right now.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's where, that happens, right? You're like, wait a minute, I did that though. Okay. Yeah. That's worthwhile having. Even if you just have a bar going across or something, I wouldn't want to put a line across your map, and you will do a site elevation, like a site view cross section later on. But having it indicated on these base maps is really useful, even if it's like low side is 1476, high side is 1570, something like that, just to show which way you're going. Because it's now that I see that, yeah, okay, now I can see the elevation. Yeah, so if you can take it right off the map and enlarge it, then it's easier to see. Yeah, there's not very many people building houses at the at the bottom, and knowing California topography, that makes a lot more sense. So, okay, cool. Does that help you out for there? Does that cover?
Yeah, that helps a lot. Yeah, my big concern was just I felt like I was falling down the rabbit hole. Like, how deep can I really go? Like, I feel like I could go if like a microclimates, like even down to like a garden bed could have different climates. So like, it just feels like you can scale becomes the problem,
It's fractal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. People that are really into metaphysics like love permaculture. because it's all fractals and it never ends. And I'm like, yeah, but there's a point. There's a point of usefulness. So the other thing is with your plant choices, you can choose like emblematic plants. So say you've got like oak wood. I'm going to guess I know you've got oak woodland in there. If you've got manzanita scrub, if you've got any rare plants, those might be nice to highlight too. Anything that sort of sticks out. Skip your like, your cheatgrass, your eucalyptus, like anything that's boring, invasive, ubiquitous, or that like crosses all of the zones. Like if there's anything that's really kind of, oh, you see this here, but not anywhere else, or not, you see this only in these 2 zones, as opposed to all 5, then that's what I would be choosing for your plant species identification. So you don't have to go into exhaustive detail. You don't have to name every plant here. Just, pick some examples that show like what you're going to find in that microclimate. And if you can find something that's like not necessary, there are some things that are just going to show up in every single climate. In even oak to a certain extent is going to do that. So yeah, just don't feel like you need to go into exhaustive detail for every zone with the with these ID charts. What do they call them? They've got a particular name for them. Like the matrix. Are they still calling it a matrix? Like, it's not a matrix.
Well, its structure is a matrix.
The plant ID chart. Just call it a chart. Yeah.
Yeah, the plant ID chart.
Yeah.
When they talk about the microclimate name, that's a name that we're describing ourselves, isn't it? There's no. Yes. I didn't see that in any of the texts or references. It's just we're describing it in terms of what did Javin say? Temperature, dryness, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So if you look at the examples, there's like, yeah, exactly. There's cool shaded, frost pockets, full sun. So you're describing them. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. I think we've gone through a lot of the talking points on my. I like having an agenda just so I don't miss any of the things that I know students commonly get caught up on. So I'm just going to take a look. Can you guys see the agenda right now?
No.
I'm still seeing my slides.
Okay. I got to tell you, this assignment was such a relief after lesson 3, because lesson 3 was really important. It was actually really, really important to go through the discipline of identifying all those, different social, economic, and environmental issues. But it's quite intense, and then when you read other people's slides, it's like, how is it that we even survive? And we do, and we're happy. And then you get into plants, which of course makes me very happy. So it was a real relief to start on this week's assignment.
Yeah, a lot of that is by design. Like, okay, let's hit them with the regional challenges, and then let's just go back to doing some plants. And like, there's kind of this continual like zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, and it's
it's really good. It's really, really well designed. It really is.
Yay. Okay, I will pass that on up. They kind of go through a big redesign every couple of years, and we're coming up for another big update. And there's been some push and pull from different, I'm going to say, administrative factions, of that some are really comfortable with digital design and come from a really technical, I guess more academic background, with having all, the land design, the actual skills of like, either installation or design and implementation and stuff, which is kind of the camp that I'm in, the more technical academic, like, let's get let's keep the template kind of as clean and practical as possible, with, getting as much technical detail in. And then there's sort of another faction of like, that is not so comfortable with digital design, but is really like deeply hands-on, like that kind of like more like, I want to say like kind of heart-focused permaculture, but like really getting into the, like, we're here to work with the earth, and we're here to like create these systems that work and everything, and the design aspects aren't as heavily loaded. So there's definitely some push and pull on the template. And I think it's over the time it's made it better. But it'll be interesting to see kind of how the next iteration of the template plays out. So I'm glad that this is working for you, because I think, I mean, Javin's put an incredible amount of work into getting that technical detail, and then with a lot of feedback and additional input. It's arguably the best online permaculture course that I've ever come across. So I'm glad it's got feedback.
What the template does is it forces you to deal with the detail of that is required to think about the principles of permaculture. And so if you don't do that, if you don't force people to discipline themselves to deal with that detail, it's all the comfortable stuff that you deal with. It's the fun stuff. It's the thing you're passionate about. It's not things that are uncomfortable and have to be accounted for if you're going to think these things through properly and not leave gaps or take shortcuts or something later on. And you're teaching permaculture principles. You're not the application of it is the next step. The chance to dig and get your hands dirty and watch the bees come down to the water pond and that sort of thing that you've created is the next step. So yeah, I don't know. But what I do find is that, sorry.
Go ahead.
But what I do find also is that by dealing with the step-by-step process, first of all, the instructions are very clear. The learning guidelines are very clear. And what I find is that by the time I get to the end of a lesson, I'm already beginning to say, hey, wait a minute, I need to do this. I need to find out about this. I need to ask these questions. And then I discover that they're actually in the next. So it's preparing me for the next step. And that's difficult to do. It's really hard to do in designing a curriculum.
I think I'm going to give Javin the replay of this, and I'll be like, go to timestamp 1022 when Karen starts talking, because that's really what they've aimed for. And it's it's sometimes hard to see the label. It's impossible to see the label from inside the jar. So we're constantly trying to get feedback from students.
Yeah.
But there's also a certain type, I would say type, I guess for lack of a better word, a type of student or a type of learner that this is going to work for, and it's not going to work for everyone that doesn't want to. There's plenty of people that are like, quick and dirty design. I did my PDC on the back of a napkin sort of design. And that works for some people. And then there's the point at which you've learned, like, right, in that back of the napkin design, you do wind up doing the things that you're most comfortable with. And then, oops, like, hopefully the things you didn't skip over don't come back to bite you, but when they do, they bite hard. And this is like we have kind of a shared mentor in Darren Dougherty with the Regrarians, and that's what this framework of going through the scale of permanence and going through this like step by step. You don't lose aspects that you're just not interested in, or you don't have as much information about. You don't forget to account for them, because there's a step-by-step approach.
Yeah,
that's good. That's where we want to be. So, okay. So this, as you guys will have seen, at least, so that the lesson 4 is distributed really evenly across the microclimate assessment and the mapping current zone. So there's no separate survey, which I quite like about this assignment. It's like kind of all getting right into the actual design process, depending where you're at. With the microclimate, a lot of stuff we've just talked about. One of the things that I do see students get a little bit, sometimes get skipped over, every point on the map has to have some microclimate designation with an explanation. So we should be able to drop a pin anywhere on that map. And it's got a microclimate, and you're going to see the same thing with the zones. So it's basically like the same assignment twice in a way, one for microclimates and one for zones. But anywhere on that map should have either a microclimate or a zone, whichever assignment you're in. It can be really simple, hot, grassy, south-facing slope, heavily shaded forest. Either of those are fine. Give a little bit of explanation. As usual, well, not for the identification charts, for the information charts, use really clear images. Don't forget to cite your sources, where those images are coming from. If you want to drop them all into your appendix and make a header, microclimate sources, zone sources, that's fine. But make sure to cite where those images are coming from and use really nice clear images on flowers or the entire tree if that's what you're using. You don't have to use them necessarily from your site, although that's helpful. When you're doing wildflowers, for instance, it's more helpful to have a picture of the flower than whatever stage it's in, especially as we're coming into middle of August, and a lot of stuff is just dried out, not looking like much. Okay, this is a good one to double check the rubric. Just go through the rubric and make sure you've checked off things. There's some details there that might get missed. I think I've just covered them. And then, like I said, you can change the colors if you want. I like to go from one end of the rainbow to the other. So red for hot and dry, red for zone 1, depending which assignment you're in, and then up to blue and green for shaded areas or for zone 5. Okay, and then assignment 9 is the current zones. Keep in mind, this is the current zones. This is not what you think it's going to turn into, what you're hoping it's going to turn into. If there's an area where you're like, I know that I want this to be part of my zone 2, it's kind of around your house, but you're really not using it right now, or you don't visit that very much, it's fine to designate it zone 3 or 4. I would reserve zone 5 for areas that are kind of true hinterland or true wilderness that you're really not going to do a lot of management in, or you're not going to be visiting often, and you're really looking to what would nature do in this situation. But things that you think you're going to be using but aren't using yet or aren't visiting, zone 3 or zone 4 is usually a good designation there. And then the point is that these will change, so you really want to capture what's happening right now. If you have a site that has no buildings on it yet, if you've got a building pad and or building site and for sure that's locked in, like there's utilities planned, or there's there's permitting, or there's some sort of really clear this building site is not going to change, you can designate that. Zones gets a little bit tricky, but if it's an area that you tend to drive into and park, that can be your zone 1. I guess there's always my advice is think of it as you're telling a story. Make it clear, this is the beginning of the story, this is where you're at, this is what's happening on the site right now, and that's what we're trying to capture, not what you're planning on it being eventually. Like I said, you can change the colors. Oh, go ahead. Yes, Karen?
No, I was just agreeing with you. I was just affirming.
Okay. Yeah. Don't forget your scale bar, your map information elements, your north arrow or compass rose. They're really important. Now we're on lesson 4, so you should have that down as a routine of just copying forward your information bar, making sure all those points are covered and that you've got an accurate scale. If you're doing any images, these assignments it doesn't really apply. You shouldn't be pulling up any new aerial images. If you are, particularly for maps, make sure that they're not skewed, coming in an angle in Google Earth.
Can I ask?
Oh, absolutely.
Sorry, I did rotate my map for this lesson 4. Is it? But okay. I don't know whether I'll chip back again. Do I need to make a note of that? I mean, obviously I've put the direction in, but you had mentioned that I should try and do it in one of the previous sessions, and I I tried it and I couldn't get my head to shift paradigm from, I just couldn't change my direction.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But with this one, it was easier because it wasn't so, well, I don't know, it was just easier. And so I was able to make the mental shift, and it did help me actually, because I was able to make it much bigger, my site. But but the instructions were quite clear. Don't keep swapping your maps around. That's very irritating to other people. So I just wasn't sure whether.
I have a pretty high irritation threshold. There's other things that irritate me, like fonts changing all over the place, or like wholesale formatting changes, stuff like that. No, Karen, you are fine. Don't worry.
I'm guilty of that for sure.
No, not to the extent that I've picked up on it or been irritated, for sure. And I will make a note like that this is visually confusing. If it's honestly, if it's bothering me, I'll be like, I'll say so. And I try to discern between personal preference and like, actually, this is confusing your reader right now. Your reader is confused. No, swapping the direction on the map is fine. Yeah, try not to like flip-flop back and forth, but where it makes sense, go ahead and do it. As long as that arrow is going in the right direction, that's the most important. So I can look at it and say like, oh, okay, north is off to the right this time because it made sense. You're not necessarily going to have a huge legend taking up a lot of your space on these maps. So that's absolutely fine.
Okay. Yeah. And one of the other questions I had was, I find that I'm making my slides I know this sounds silly that I'm talking about slides when actually what we're supposed to be doing is learning principles, but I find the slides are quite dense. Is that not irritating to you? What it says to me is the person didn't spend enough time synthesizing and crystallizing the information that they were supposed to put on the slide. That's what I would say if I was grading it. But I just find that it's hard to put all of that information onto one slide without making it very dense.
I don't mind the dense. I think personally, I find the density more useful than having it dispersed across multiple slides.
Okay.
I'm going to open yours up so that people watching the replay, you don't mind if I open yours up, correct?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Sorry, I do have it open.
Anybody watching the replay can know what Karen's talking about. It's not Karen that's dense, it's her information is her yeah, you're.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Just for clarity. Yeah. Here we go. I can see why someone chose yours as their. Yeah. So here's these are good examples, and you did split the indigenous history and land history across 2 slides.
Oops.
Okay. What I wanted to go to was, there's your sector compass. Yeah, so it's just, your SWOT analyses are great examples. They're all like this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I always say 3 to 5 points, and some people, a point is very cursory. I have read, even if I haven't commented, I have read through the vast majority of information that you've put into these slides. It is not redundant. Like these are a good example. It's not redundant information. It's useful. It's relevant. Let me see. Oh, it's not going to show me what your font size is. Generally, if you can keep from going below a font size of 11, 10, actually even 10 is fine for your text, you're fine. There might be a few things. Let me see here. I don't know, Karen, there's not a lot that I would trim here. You can,
happened?
Yeah, I mean, you're making bullet points. You're not writing in full sentences like "we receive hail." There's not much we can, like there's not a lot that I see that you can trim, and you pack a lot of information into these slides. So, if you're okay with it, I'm okay with it. And I think to a client.
Vincent, are you there? Are you also waiting for Susan?
I'm here. Yeah, I can hear the response.
Okay. You are also welcome if you've got any questions. But yeah, none of the density here, Karen, I'm seeing is superfluous, or there's really not a lot I would trim, because like the problems and weaknesses, I did read through these like word for word. Your obstacles, they're well written, they're full of information. I love how the bolding is really helpful for sure. Making it more readable. You've got clear images, you've got images that are labeled and show like where these are coming from. This is super useful.
I think
And
Karen,
as a client,
issues.
sorry, go ahead.
I think Karen dropped off because of technical issues.
Shoot.
I don't see her in the list anymore.
Okay, well, she can watch
Sorry.
the replay as I'm going on and on and on about how great her slides are. Okay. Yeah, anyway, long story short, too late. I think that level of detail is perfectly fine and preferable to being too cursory. So
I have the exact opposite problem with my slides. I do a lot of presentations for work for executives, and 3 to 5 words is about their attention span. So
yes.
I have to keep everything in very high level bullets. And so my brain has acclimated itself to that. So I struggle with giving enough information, I think, in my slides.
Okay, well, let's do a little comparison then, because I had yours up. Not for this. Here we go. Here now it is. Okay. Not for the sake of picking anything apart, but I want to show what that looks like, because you guys are both doing excellent work. As far as I know, you've pretty much got full marks, if not. So that's useful to other people to see, like, okay, what's you've got 5, 6, 7 points on these. See, okay, so one of the differences here, you're not using pronouns. So you're not using like, we have 3 roads on the property. Like, you're really making short bullet points. You're packing in a comparable amount of information.
Yeah.
Let me see. Okay, so here's a good comparison. Let me see, where did you go? Yeah, so you're more basic for sure on these aspects, but it's still clear. It's still like, it's very clear to me what your site, your region's challenges and opportunities are. I might have more detail from someone like Karen's, like that, what some of the consequences of those are, like a lower median threshold income or household income might mean, there's more unemployment, more vagrancy, more crime. But both of these are just excellent examples, just in different. You've gone to different levels of detail, but you've also packed a lot of information in here. You've just done it in a different way, and you've cut out a lot of, I guess, words and making them closer to full sentences. Yeah, I mean, you've cut out you haven't included levels of detail that she has. They're both, yeah, I mean, they're both just excellent examples of, like, these would be perfect. Either one, I would be perfectly happy to hand to a client. If they wanted more detail on something, or they wanted to go deeper into something, then you could do that. But as long you understand what's going on in your site, I get a good enough picture of what's going on in your site from what you've provided here, that either of those are fine. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus and bring up an example of like what I have commented is like insufficient, but it's like very generic, like fire risk and theft are regional challenges. Like, there's not a lot of places in the world that those aren't possible, but what are the specifics? So I think you're both fine. I'm happy with where you're at. So.
I think it was kind of like an unasked question that I just kind of made a decision on early on in the process. But when we're doing the presentation slides, I kind of structured mine as if I was going to sit down and walk somebody through the presentation.
Yeah.
So in presenting, it's like the way that I've always done presenting is that I want to give people enough information to keep them on the same path as me, but leave myself room to speak to those details and be that expert,
Yeah.
Where I really struggle oftentimes is where like how Karen has just all the details on the slide. I struggle I struggle to get all my details out onto paper and put into words. I'm better at talking than writing most of the time. So I struggle with a lot of that type of stuff, which is why the bullets are so much shorter. I've kind of structured it in a way that I would hope would be advantageous to me when I present later. It was the decision. But again, I don't know if that was the right move or not.
Okay. Well, you're doing fine. So,
Okay.
yeah, and that's not a bad approach actually too. If you're working with clients, the number of 15, 20, I've sent 65-page reports to clients and, given them a few weeks and talk to them and be like, so not quite so like, what did you think? But like, well, as you'll see in the forestry section, they're like, oh, we didn't read it. It was overwhelming. So like, your approach is a good one, is to plan to sit down with someone and go through that in detail. And if there's certain aspects they have questions about, you can have that bank of information. But there are decisions there to be made about what the format or like how the format is going to reflect the presentation of it. That makes.
Are we going to present these at some point?
No.
Oh, okay. Vincent, I would say that your slides are crystallized. That's what I would look for I would definitely look for what you do in a presentation, because it encapsulates the core message of that more verbal, wordy sentence that I would produce. And that's what you actually need. You need that core communication, and it is there.
Thank you.
No.
Yeah, I think I really like how your slides give all, like, kind of explicitly spell out the important stuff better, though. Like, I really like how when you're giving the details and the blocks, like I feel like if I were a customer and I came back to the slides, like I would probably forget some of the details that maybe I did in my slides, where you would have some of them in there. So maybe it's a balancing act between the 2 points, I guess. But it's a really interesting view when you're looking at everybody's slides and comparing yours to theirs, and how everybody communicates it is just a little different. So I've really enjoyed that part of the course so far. It's just comparing notes.
Yeah. I know it is. There's such a diversity. It is very, very, very fascinating to look at other people's, how they communicate, and also what they're communicating about.
Okay. I just wanted to, as you guys are talking, I was just reviewing both of your personal surveys, and this is why I really want students to use the template and not submit individual PDFs or individual chunks of the project at a time, because I go back to your personal survey, and there's a bit of a difference if you're looking to use it just for your own property, which most students coming through the PDC Pro are specifically looking to either shift a career or build a new career, or at least, be able to do this in some capacity professionally, which is great. I think this project is a great learning opportunity. I mean, it's obviously a great learning opportunity, but for you to go through your own site or a friend's site and go through that level of exhaustive detail, just to understand like how much can go into that. Now, with every client, you wouldn't necessarily go through that level of detail, or they might end up as like appendices, and what the client actually gets, as like a main client report is like the concept design, some explanation, some individualized maps, and like an overview of like of the regional challenges and climate and everything. And then you've got that information kind of back pocket with more detail. But going through it at this level the first time in like so thoroughly, Karen, like you were saying, then you don't skip over aspects that you're not as interested in or you're not as comfortable with. So you're basically learning this process by going through everything in that level of detail. It doesn't necessarily mean that every client project you're going to have to go through like the entire 20-week OSU PDC Pro course again, but you understand the level of detail and the type of thinking that needs to go into each client project. So, and I think you guys are both accomplishing that in kind of rather different ways and for your own personal goals. So.
I'm just loving it. I really am.
Yay. That's good.
That's it.
Okay. I've got a little note here that I don't want to miss out on, and we're getting close to time. Just a reminder, because I don't think I've gone through this sufficiently in previous cohorts. The final lesson 10 is due Monday, December 1st at 9 a.m. That is the only lesson that I try to be as strict as I possibly can about that deadline, because Christmas is coming up shortly after the course ends on the 14th. I need to be able to get all my marking, all of my feedback in, and any revisions that students want to submit by the 14th. That's a hard deadline from OSU. I can't do anything about it. So I cannot and do not accept assignments or lessons beyond that final deadline of I can't accept anything including revisions after December 14th. So I try to be really, I'm sorry, this is kind of like, I wanted to make sure I mentioned this before we ran out of time today. So that December 1st deadline for the final lesson is a pretty hard and fast. It's so hard for me not to say like, oh, well, if you're a couple of days late. I really ask that students make that a hard deadline on the 1st. So put it in your calendar, make sure you do whatever you need to do to catch up by that point if you're falling behind. We do have a break coming up after lesson 5, which is the water analysis. It's probably one of the bigger assignments in the course. So you kind of get a breather after this like great big water assignment. If you need to catch up, plan to use that time. Keep in mind it's also at least in the Northern Hemisphere, it's a pretty heavy or busy harvest time, back to school for some people. So for kids, or if you're in school yourself, so don't lean on it too heavily. Don't leave it until the break to catch up. So if you need to catch up, start doing that as soon as possible. And then our lesson 5 is due September 1st. Our next office hour call for lesson 6 is going to be September 29th. So whatever you want to call that break, if you want to hand in your lesson 5 right on September 1st and not look at things again if you're caught up until the office hour, or until the lesson information will drop the week before, so on September 22nd. That's fine. It's also a good time to work ahead a little bit if you can, or at least look into some of the material that's coming up. So use your break if you can to either get caught up or to even get a little bit ahead, if you can make that happen. If you know you're going to be submitting late, and this is any assignment throughout the course or any lesson throughout the course, you can send me an email to let me know ahead of time. For the real end, for the last lesson 10, again, get it in by the 1st if you possibly can. If something happened, your internet failed, tsunami hit, we have another pandemic. Another pandemic might open up the opportunity for you to finish. For me, for any of us with small children, it basically like tanked our opportunities to do anything for like 2 years. But I do need to plan my grading time ahead in order to meet my obligations to OSU, which is to have all of my marking, all of my invoicing done the week of the 14th. And so in order to be able to do that, I need to have assignments in by the 1st is absolutely ideal. Okay, so keep December 1st in mind as your final deadline. That I'm probably gonna keep saying it every office hour so that nobody comes back and says, oh we didn't know when the deadline was, because I have been guilty of not being clear about it in the past. So I don't want to make that mistake for students' sake more than anything, because it's stressful. And the last assignment is going to be a big one. It's the concept plan. It's where you bring everything together. So don't leave it until the end with only like a few days to wrap it up. So I got 6 minutes. Is there anything else that you guys would like to hash on or bring up, or anything exciting happening in your lives that you want to share? I don't know.
I have many questions about the water assignment, but I'll save them for that.
Wait until the water assignment for that one. Do the practice sheet. That is the one thing I will tell you at the outset, is do the practice sheet, because it's worth a point.
Well, I guess as part of the water assignment, will we get into like ideas on how to increase the infiltration in there, or is it strictly about just surveying and monitoring what happens in the property and the watersheds?
It's really, it's really more analysis. In the educational materials, I'd have to go and check what videos he's included for that. A lot more of the infiltration comes in when you're looking at when we get into the soil analysis, which is lesson 6. So assignment 13. Yeah, they've kind of, it's just one assignment. So your soil infiltration stuff is going to come up in your soil, in the soil lesson. However, in the water analysis, you're really getting like the calculations for your roof water catchment, your land catchment, watershed, all of that stuff. So you have the numbers to work with, and then you can start thinking about, whether it's more, how cost effective it's going to be to look at tanks, for instance. If you have enough water to fill a pond, then if you are thinking about ponds, you're going to want to wait till after the soil analysis lesson, because that's where you're going to find out more about like what your clay content is, and if that's actually a kind of a realistic goal. Like if you're on really sandy, loamy soils, building a pond is just a really, really heavy lift, because you've got nothing to hold it there. If you got really high clay content, it's a different story, and you may well be more cost effective to build a pond than to install a bunch of tanks. Now, in your climate, Vincent, ponds generally tend to turn into evaporation pools. They're not often that effective, unless you're counting on it or you're okay with it being more of like a seasonal endeavor, which is still good. Like infiltration ponds are excellent for getting and keeping water on the landscape. Depending on what your clay content looks like, because I'm trying to see the topography there. Because you're more up on the hillsides, you're not in like that vernal pool landscape of the Central Valley, correct?
Yeah, we're pretty much at the top of a ridge, and it drops off about 100 feet or so from the highest to lowest, and pretty quickly. So I was hoping to do more, probably not a pond just because of scale and how expensive it would be, but hopefully doing something more to just slow the water down as it goes down the hillside. That was what I was hoping to do, but because of the slope, like trying to figure out swales versus key line plowing versus all the other options that are out there. I know there's a ton of them to try to slow down the water. I guess I just don't know enough about the engineering behind them to determine what would work best.
Yeah. The person that does, like the person with the materials that does would be Darren Doherty. Has really, I mean, he's written the handbook, the field guide on like on his systems on pond building. And there's some really good resources through Quivira Coalition. Now, are you, like, I'm familiar with like up around Modesto, Merced, Mariposa areas. Are you on that kind of like granitic rock where you're sort of on like rock fields?
Lots of rock. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Lots and lots of rock. Very large boulders.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon to go and try and dig a hole for a tree, maybe a foot deep and have to move out, 2/3 of the mass is rock. Like
Right.
it's
Okay.
very
Okay.
rocky.
So yeah, so you'd be looking more at infiltration then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had an idea for like a swale hugel tech dam combination thing, but I think I might be overthinking and over engineering, which is something I'm prone to do. So I was just wondering about resources to find kind of better ideas on how to deal with that, because it is such a rocky terrain. Like I worry
Yeah.
about blowouts and everything else if I dig the swale too deep and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, I would, in that kind of terrain, and in that, I would, for the most part, unless there's something real, yeah, I would just let swales go entirely, like out of my brain, and something like hugel, like there's people that have built like hugel berms on slope, especially where they were clearing forest. So basically just dropping trees or piling brush on slopes, and that's been really effective. And especially if you've got rock, you can pile in some places you may be able to like pile brush behind them and basically create like little catchments based, because if the rock's not likely to go anywhere, that might be an opportunity there.
That was my thought, is building the hugel mounds kind of on contour, almost as if they were swales, not tall ones, but maybe like, no more than a foot tall, with rock, effectively a one rock dam behind it to kind of hold it all in place. But the initial thought was to dig a 3 to 6 inch trench for the logs and everything to kind of sit in to start with, just so that it's kind of already embedded and stable level, and then do this stuff on the backside of it. But again, I've never done any of this. I don't know if that's even a good idea. If I totally wrecked the landscape doing it, so it's all new to me.
You can also look around. I mean, having walked around some of that terrain, like looking at properties and stuff, I mean, you can look at how nature solved the problem. Like anywhere that like logs pile up. So yeah, I mean, you can lay down large logs, and that can be sort of like the back, the back or the bottom side of your swale. And yeah, just look at what happens where there's points that water collects behind some sort of like natural structure. That might give you some ideas too. I mean, generally, especially if you been there for some time?
A few years.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, your intuition should be pretty spot on. I mean, yeah, I mean, digging and loosening rocks, you can really destabilize things. So I mean, I think the ideas you have are pretty sound. And then just getting them on contour. The other thing, and they don't, like you said, they don't have to be that tall. I mean, you're not going to have a foot of water, so there's not a lot of point in having like, a foot tall or 2 foot tall structure. It doesn't take much to just slow water down that's coming down slope, or slow rain down, and collect it and hold it there.
So are you saying that even a pile of brush would slow water?
Depending on the brush, right? So if it's a lot of like small sticks, water's going to slow. Yeah, it's going to slow water down, as long as you're not getting the kind of surface flow that's going to wash it out. So larger diameter is generally better, because it's going to absorb more water, right? So if you've got small diameter, like if you've got the type of brush that's like a bunch of little sticks, it might slow things down, but then it's going to evaporate quite quickly. And Yeah, so like small diameter wood doesn't really work for hugel because you wind up with a lot of air spaces in it. And I mean, I committed that crime. The first hugel I ever built was basically like, hey, we have all this brush and all these sticks. Let's like pile them all together and like pack dirt into them and stuff. And then I stepped back, and I did use a chainsaw to like buck them up a little bit, so it was shorter sections, and it did pack down a little bit better. But basically, then you wind up anything you want to plant into that, you're going to be root pruning it because there's little air pockets everywhere, and it's sort of inherently unstable. But if you see it a lot with chain link fences. Actually, I think is probably a good example where you've got a chain link fence. Like this happens all the time around avocado orchards where they let all the leaf litter build up. So you've got a chain link fence on the downward side of a slope, and all the leaves back up behind it. Well, over the years, you'll see like a layer of soil building up where those leaves are all breaking down. And it's the same sort of idea. Anything you can get that'll catch stuff, hold it long enough that it break down and actually start compacting. I mean, you'll be retaining water far more than you would just on a bare slope. So,
do you guys have termites?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Very useful critters in the right context, for the most part.
Yes.
Yeah. Not in the same volume that you like. You guys actually get like termite mounds, correct? Where you are?
Yes, but not where we are. But typically in Africa, you do. But where we have these colonies underneath the ground, and they're just everywhere. I mean, there must be tons and tons of weights of termites underneath our property here. And if you dig in the right places, you come up with their nests and whatever. But if I mulch in the winter, they will eat all the mulch before the end of winter. And winter is not that long; it's like 6 to 8 weeks or something like that. And so I deliberately feed the termites through winter because I reckon they're better for our soil. But I think a hugelkultur mound for us would just disintegrate so fast because of the termites. They would just eat the whole thing. It would be a good way to feed the termites, actually.
Right.
But, don't know how long it would last.
Oh.
I haven't tried.
Yeah, Vincent, I don't think it'd be too different where you are, but I know like we had termites, but not to that scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have them and a few of the trees that were cut before we moved to the property, the stumps that are left behind are all caving in from termites eating them up. So they're definitely a thing here. But my hope was that if I could get the hugel mounds going and planted and get some perennials in, we also have some black locust on the property that I could use as like a chop and drop to hopefully build up the mound over time and hopefully feed them if necessary. And since it doesn't break down very quick, I imagine it would probably be a harder thing for them to chew on too, hopefully. But I don't, like I said, I don't know very much about it, so never tried.
Oh, it's always worth. It's not always worth experimenting. I shouldn't say that, but it's fun. It can be fun to experiment. Maybe I should put it that way. Yeah, our termites always seem to be more civilized. They prefer to live in our house than.
It's the air conditioning.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, folks, I'm gonna wrap. I have to go pick up my kid. Nice to see you both again. Thank you for showing up with such regularity. It's really nice. So,
thank you very much.
All right, you take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye, Vincent.
Take care.